All right, it's Tuesday night, back again on the CA podcast. We got a busy podcast this week. Finally, we're back on script. Had a little bit more time to do some preparation. And thank you guys for contributing to what is the busiest mailbag in CA podcast history. But we will start at the beginning, looking at waivers from last week. Kraus spent $12 on Titus Young. Seems like a good move now that Nate Burleson is out. I believe Titus Young caught 2 touchdowns this past weekend. So Titus Young was kind of a big preseason sleeper, and now it looks like he might be delivering a little bit on that hype. So good pickup by Kraus. He picked up Daryl Richardson, which looked to be a good move, then he dropped him, and so now the rumor is that Steven Jackson might get traded, and Richardson's going to be pretty valuable. So Kraus obviously should have held on to him there. Also, I picked up Chris Givens from the Rams for $2. This guy only catches 50-yard bombs. He's caught a lot of long touchdowns this year. He's caught 50-yard plus pass in 5 straight games. So I thought it was a pretty good pickup, just in case Stevie Johnson or Torrey Smith kind of can't get back up to how they should be playing. This is a good guy to have on the back burner. So, all right, looking at the power rankings, starting at the back. Justin, even a blind squirrel finds a nut every once in a while. Justin put up 98 points this week. Even took out his brother on the way to going 2-0. So Justin actually won both matchups for the first time since week 1. Matt Ryan and Josh Freeman both had big days, big wins for their teams. Heath Miller just keeps scoring touchdowns. Steve Smith had a big day even. Still, all that being said, Justin failed to crack triple digits again. Would have lost to a number of other teams this week. So don't get too used to this winning thing. Number 11, Jason Plotzker. Plotzker has now lost 4 in a row and has put up an average of just 80 points per game over the last 3 weeks. He just has this continued insistence on starting the majority of the Eagles' offense. It's not really turning out to be the world's greatest plan. He's kind of looking to be one of the biggest bidders on Nick Foles tonight, as it appears as though his golden goose, Mike Vick, might be getting benched. Number 10, Oaks. Oaks' stupid, shitty team finally fell to earth. Ryan Tannehill got hurt. Brandon Weeden, got a nice win for the Browns, but really had a terrible statistical game. Doug Martin, the muscle hamster, scored a third of Andy's points. He's a seriously good keeper option moving forward, so great job, Ariel. Thanks for hooking him up. Oaks also has Randall Cobb, who's a nice keeper option for next year. So, obviously the bigger plan is in place here for Oaks. If Tannehill is out for an extended period, Oaks is going to be starting one quarterback or maybe Jake Locker at some point. So 2012 is over for Oaks. In at number 9, John Kraus. Despite my best efforts, Larod Stephen Howlings couldn't get it done last night. Kraus cruised to a victory. Still, Kraus only put up 83 points on the weekend. Would have lost to any team other than Smith, Plotz, or Ariel. Chris Johnson looks like he's sort of finally established some level of stability for Kraus. But, he's running into the Bears defense this weekend, which is never good. Larry Fitz is just taking a total nosedive. He's next to worthless. Kraus is only 1 game out of first, but, he has some work to do to make up in his total points gap. Number 8, Andrew Smith. It's kind of seems like the teams in the Shame of Sherwood division, despite actually being a competitive group and a good division, are sort of taking turns seeing who can score a disgustingly low amount of points every week. Billy put up 53 points in week 2. Bootsy mustered just 56 in week 5, and obviously we all know about Ben's all-time low 47-point debacle from last week, and now it was Smith's turn as he put up a lowly 57.5 points this past weekend. Let's see. Carson Palmer, Denarius Moore hooked up for another TD. They've been a good little duo for Smith, but really the rest of his group just kind of sucked. Bye weeks forced him into playing a man down. You kind of have to question his move of starting Ryan Fitzpatrick, who was on a bye, over Tim Tebow, who at least played a game. I mean, I understand Tebow's not the starter. He only had 2 rush yards the whole game, so obviously, it's not like Tebow would have turned the tide or anything like that. But going into it, I mean, you got to play the guy who at least is going to be taking the field, I would think. So, I don't know. Smith is 7-9. He's in last place in a tough division and 8th in the power rankings. Number 7, Ben Boris. Peyton Manning has kind of hit his stride, and LaShawn McCoy found the end zone twice after a sort of a mini drought. With the quarterback situation looking as ugly as it is in Philadelphia, I would say look for LaShawn McCoy's workload to increase, which is definitely a good thing for Ben. Ben, had a nice 2-0 weekend. 104 points is the most he's put up since week 5. Ben's team definitely still has some punch. It's a threat in the division. He's still kind of struggling to overcome that 47-point disaster. So he's just got to keep cracking triple digits, and he should be a factor in the end. Number 6, Billy Boris. Will is tied with his brother at 8 wins, but he does hold a pretty decided edge in total points. He was pretty lucky to beat Ariel this week. He only put up 83 points. Stephen Ridley looked really good across the pond over there in jolly old England. Julio Jones scored a big touchdown, but Drew Brees wasn't really his normal self, and the rest of Billy's squad kind of failed to show up. So big matchup with Bootsy looms this weekend that'll go a long way to deciding what Billy's fate might be. Number 5, Andrew Denenberg. Denenberg despite a 4-game winning streak, a league-leading 11 wins, his first place spot in a tough division. The feeling sort of remains that D is getting by on smoke and mirrors. He secured wins this week with 97 points. It's a total that would have lost to 4 other teams. He beat up on Smith and capitalized on a bad effort from Ariel's team. Still, whatever. As they say in the NFL, you are what your record says you are. Obviously he's in first place, has been in first place, I believe, the whole season. So he's got some big matchups, and he plays myself and Brian Deutsch this weekend. Really, though, even if he falters, look for him to kind of regain some ground in week 10. He plays Plotzker and Justin, the dynamic duo of Plotzker and Justin. And then at number 4, I put myself. Despite I brutally put my foot in my mouth again, coming up short in the weekly high points race, I still had a great week. Brady put up 4 touchdowns in London. Marshawn Lynch finally scored a touchdown from more than 1 yard out. Darren McFadden broke 100 yards rushing. So as a result of going 2-0, I took over the top spot in the Lane Bryant division on total points as a tiebreaker. So I'll kind of have to weather the storm of Brady being out on a bye this week, but at least I will get a chance to cheer my substitute on in person as I'm going down to Nashville for Bears-Titans. So I will keep an eye on Jay Cutler, who I'm being forced into starting this week anyways, and hopefully he can because hopefully his return to Nashville will be a good one. Number 3, Bootsy. I said that Alex Smith would need the game of a lifetime to beat me in the weekly high points race. He definitely obliged. Bootsy won weekly high points by less than 2 points. He had a nice 2-0 weekend. He's now kind of got a commanding lead in the Shame of Sherwood division, and a pretty crushing advantage in total points as well. So, trade acquisition Ryan Matthews totally sucks. Bootsy can kind of take solace in Matt Stafford sort of rounding into form, and Willis McGahee just sort of continuing to kick ass. He's been great since week 1. Number 2, Brian Deutsch. Deutsch's attempt at being George Steinbrenner was going pretty well until this week. Big money acquisitions Cam Newton and Aaron Rodgers failed to break 30 points combined, which is pretty ugly. It's not exactly why he went out and sold his auction dollars for. But his only really big points this week came from Percy Harvin, the guy he drafted. This week, I think it's probably kind of a fluke for Brian as he was dealing with Jordy Nelson missed the game with an injury, and just a terrible game from who normally reliable Ahmad Bradshaw. I would say Deutsch will most likely get back on track this week because he's going to beat up on Oaks. Number 1, Ariel Glicksberg. Despite an 0-2 week, Ariel still has a big lead in total points for the league, and he's won 10 of his last 14 matchups. This past week, I don't think it'll be the norm for Ariel. He had Arian Foster on a bye, who's a big part of his team, and it looks like Brandon Lloyd is finally getting his shit figured out, so he'll be able to get him back in the starting lineup. Ariel has a big matchup with Bootsy this weekend. He has a chance in finally taking over his division from D-Berg. So for the week, congratulations, Ariel, in at number 1. All right, preview. Looking forward to next week. Big matchup, Bootsy versus Billy. Fortunately for Bootsy, Matt Castle earned his starting job back this past week when Brady Quinn got his skull crushed by the Raiders. Now he's got 2 starting quarterbacks, with Stafford getting the miserable Jaguars. Billy's going to end up having Drew Brees on Monday Night Football against the Eagles, who haven't been so hot, and they're also playing in the Superdome, so I would imagine Billy would most likely clinch the matchup then. Either way, it'll still be close. Another big matchup, myself versus Denenberg. Temporarily a matchup of teams in first place. It's a pretty even matchup. All 4 of our running backs have pretty good opponents. Or I should say pretty good matchups. Lynch is at home against the Vikings. McFadden at home against Tampa Bay. For Denenberg, Forte plays the shitty Titans, and Jamal Charles plays the awful Chargers. So I don't know. D-Berg takes the Romo Austin show on the road to the Georgia Dome, where actually I think the Cowboys are probably going to play pretty well. If I were a betting man, I'd probably put money on Denenberg, but we'll see on Sunday. All right, I made reference to this a little bit earlier. Now it's time to bust open the record-setting old mailbag for this week. It's bursting at the seams, this old mailbag. So starting at the top, letter from Justin here. He says, "What are the chances I am not Clown? And then, can you do a top 10 of greatest rivalries in Coolrophobics Anonymous and compare them to pro rivalries?" Excellent questions, Justin. I would say after your 2-0 weekend, I think you gave yourself a fighting chance. Really, you're only 2 games behind a handful of 7 and 9 teams. You're only 1 game behind Plotsker right now, and we still have another 5 or 6 weeks of the season. More so, I'm sorry, another 6 weeks in the season. So, that being said, you've got a serious gap in total points. I'd say your best chances if Plotsker's team just absolutely bottoms out and you end up with more wins, you're definitely going to need to surpass, because if you tie for last place, your miserable point total is going to make you the Clown. So right now, I'd say your Clown threat level is burgundy. In a few weeks, could pull back to a much more soothing fuchsia. Also, I love your question about rivalries, Justin. It's a good one. The reason I kind of originally feared multi-matchups when we made the switch is because they tend to kind of marginalize rivalries. Even still, there have been some great ones. The Fire have been in the playoffs. The Fire are in the playoffs tomorrow, so I've been pretty busy at work. I didn't exactly have time to look up the top 10, but here's a short list of the top 4 in no particular order. Starting with Plotsker versus Kraus. This is always an entertaining rivalry. They were trading some emails today, I saw. The competitive edge has been pretty even over the last 2 years. Kraus leads 4-3. The real battles between these two are fought via email. Kraus will frequently lament his bad luck, and Plotsker will make fun of him while saying something prostitute-related. I'd compare this rivalry a little bit to Jets versus Patriots. It's not always the outcome of the game that makes for the most interesting news when those two teams get together. So that's how I view Plotsker. Another big rivalry, obviously, myself versus Oaks, clash of college roommates. Oaks and I always take an extra special sense of satisfaction in taking each other out. Started way back in the 2008 Yahoo League, the Coolrophobics semifinals. Oaks crushed me on the way to a championship, to the inaugural Coolrophobics Anonymous Championship. Let's see. It continued, obviously, 2009, and then 2010, I smacked him around a few times on the way to my first place regular season finish. My dominance continued into 2011. I was 3-1 against Oaks, despite a last place finish in the division. Still managed to stick it to him and keep him out of the playoffs. Oaks has a 2-1 edge this year, but he's traded away most of his players. Most likely lose to even the series when we play in Week 12, I would hope. At least that's the plan. Our rivalry is kind of, I would say, someone like Packers and Bears. There's a lot of tradition there. Most of it involves beer and overindulging in fast food. All right, Ben versus Billy is another great rivalry. Billy has only been in the CAL for 2 years, if you will. His older brother has always kind of had his way with him. Ben holds a 5-2 edge all time in this contest. But we always look forward to these weekly showdowns. They always compete with one another. This includes kind of earlier in the season when Ben beat his brother by .08 points, which I believe is the smallest margin of victory in league history. I know I've kept I can find stats on biggest margin of victory, but wasn't able to find smallest. I got to believe .08 is definitely the smallest it's been. I would say Ben and Billy, this rivalry is kind of like Ravens-Bengals. One side holds a decided advantage, but the games are always close, and there's definitely some bad blood. And then lastly, Brian against Justin Deutsch. Brian holds a 3-2 edge over his brother. He just lost to him in a big-time upset this week. This rivalry kind of reminds me of Jets and Dolphins. It matters for the participants, but both teams have been somewhat historically bad. The teeth are sort of missing. Brian obviously has brought out the big guns, is trying to buy a championship this year, so maybe he'll get out to a commanding lead and leave this rivalry behind him. All right, next submission. I am in a fantasy basketball league with Andrew and his dad. I believe this refers to Denenberg. The league has existed for like 300 years. The other night at the draft, they were telling stories about the guy who spent big bucks, $97 on David Robinson in like 1994. What will be the story from our first 5 years that we tell at our draft 20 years from now? Keeping in line with that, that league still does all lineup changes via email rather than just doing it through the site. What traditions do you see us maintaining despite technology rendering these processes obsolete? I like where this league is headed. I do envision us being a group of old drunks that talk shit about roster mistakes from decades prior. Things that stick out to me are Rifkin drafting from the toilet at Montana, Plotzker drinking a bottle of Jack Daniels with Ariel and drunkenly trading away his whole team on the night of the draft. And of course, obviously, all the clown nights, they continue to get better and better. So I would say doing lineup changes via email to me is insane. I love that we have fab and trades and everything automated, but I like that we stick to tradition when it comes to drafting in person. Obviously, Justin this year was a little bit of a extenuating circumstances. He was at school. I don't think we'll ever hold a purely electronic draft unless someone is geographically removed like that. All right, next submission. Idea for Clown Night. If it's one of you Hoosiers, let's go to Indiana for a basketball game and Clown Night. Hoosiers are ranked number 1, so it should be fun. Think Hoosiers will win it all? Staying on basketball, can the Bulls win the Central? Predictions for the second half of the season. Any sleeper on someone's bench that helps them win their division? Best wide receiver, running back, quarterback of the season? What happened to the league knockout pool? Ariel. All right, so a little all over the place. All sorts of questions from Ariel. The whole league got a preview of these as he did the dreaded reply all instead of the reply. Indiana is absolutely stacked this year, Ariel. They return everyone from a Sweet 16 team. They had a top 5 recruiting class. They had a full offseason to get Zeller and Watford really that much better. So, going down for a game would be sick. I think having a Clown Night in Bloomington would be even better. No doubt the Clown would play at sports. The Bulls will not win the Central. The Pacers will. The Bulls might not even finish second in the Central, really. They're not going to be that good this year. It's difficult for us to wrap our minds around. It's a depressing fact, no question. We'll all watch every game and be just as diehard fans, but they're just not going to be as good. Rose will be back and maybe in time to maybe get the 8th seed, if he is playing well. But really, that's about it. So, sadly, no, the Bulls will not win the Central. I will keep my predictions for the second half kind of short. As I think about it very quickly, I will say Bootsy and I win our divisions. Ariel and Deutsch will figure out the division and the wild card, one or the other. I'm not sure which one will be which. Big Town sleeper down the stretch, I think Vic Ballard for Brian Deutsch. I think Ballard could be pretty good, making an already good team even better. Best running back currently, in the past, present, future, the rest of the year is Arian Foster. Best quarterback from here on out is going to be Matt Ryan as he gets the Saints' miserable defense twice in the next 4 weeks. And really, I see Demaryius Thomas kind of asserting himself the next few weeks, really establishing himself as one of the best wide receivers in the league. As far as the knockout pool goes, there were only 4 people interested in it. I determined it was a waste of time, and we'll never talk about it again. All right, next question. To demonstrate my intellectual range, I'm offering 2 questions. 1, what is the best single item of fast food in the world? For me, it starts and ends with Taco Bell's Cheesy Gordita Crunch. 2, seeing Radiz and KP dance to some retarded country song at their wedding made me wonder what would be the most inappropriate song for a couple's first dance. My initial thoughts were Rape Me by Nirvana or Girl, You'll Be a Woman Soon by Neil Diamond. Bonus song, Jungle Love by Morris Day and the Time for an interracial marriage. That comes from Smith. Very solid questions here, Smith. The Cheesy Gordita Crunch is widely recognized as the greatest fast food item in the world. I've never actually had it, and yes, I feel like less of a man saying that. The greatest fast food creation of all time is no doubt the pizza with McDonald's as a topping. But as far as the direct from the store kind of things go, I got to say the beautiful simplicity of a McDonald's sausage biscuit. I love McDonald's sausage biscuits, so that's what I'm going for. I do love your concept of inappropriate wedding songs. You've named some pretty exceptional one. Here is a short list of tunes I would be horrified to see my daughter go out to and dance on her big day. Gold Digger by Kanye West would be, just offensive enough. A Man Needs a Maid by Neil Young would be pretty bad. Smell Yo Dick by Risky, the drama queen, is pretty bad. And then Why Don't We Get Drunk and Screw by Jimmy Buffett. All 4 would be terrible, terrible options. Next question. Mr. Bauer, between Krause's big leaguing and refusing to leave his couch, HBP's piss-poor attendance at league outings this year, and Denneberg choosing golf with Deutsch's father-in-law over the league, I feel as a whole, Cool Republics Anonymous has wandered off the righteous path. Please, Mr. Bauer, enlighten us as to how to best watch footballs on Sundays. Should we go to a bar or invite ourselves to Montana every week? I think we can all agree normal girls have no place in an NFL Sunday, but should there be women, and if so, just strippers or full-on working girls? What controlled substances should we all be focusing on? Is 10 a.m. on a Sunday too early for a little pick-me-up if we're not in Vegas? We all know Bootsy's substance of choice, but maybe he should be dropping acid every Sunday morning since the 2012 Lions are on par with the Cirque du Soleil show. Or maybe we should all go to the suburbs for brunch. Help us. First in OI and last in your hearts, Billy Boris. Billy, you've got some strong points here. There's a lot going on. I'm not going to go into everything. The mailbag is pretty massive, like Randy Marsh's ball sack. And actually, I'm up against my time limit here, so I'll respond to these questions via email. Otherwise I've got to go through and edit a bunch of shit short. So appreciate you guys getting in the big mailbag questions this week. Kraus had one, and Billy, I'll get you an email response. So thank you guys for listening, and go Bears.